We are on.
Rakshit, I think we are on, right? Guys, very good morning to all of you and welcome to this webinar.
Good morning, Neeraj.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
My video froze. So a very special welcome to our esteemed panelists too. Please note, as the screen was showing earlier, the views and opinions expressed in today's webinar are those of the panelists themselves, based on the immense experience they have in the industry and do not represent their respective organizations. It's an honor to moderate a panel with such industry renowned personalities on the topic of business travel risk management and mitigation. So let me first start introducing our panel members. We have Sanjay Kapoor, who's Chief Strategy and Revenue Officer at Indigo.
Neeraj is Sanjay Kumar.
Yeah, Sanjay Kumar, sorry, Chief Strategy and Revenue Officer at Indigo. Sanjay has been part of the Indian aviation industry for over 25 years and has extensive aviation experience in the areas of business planning, network development, revenue management, and sales and distribution. In the past, he's also worked with AirAsia, SpiceJet, and Air Sahara at various positions and has been part of start teams at these airlines. We also have Pooja Deshpande. She's a Senior Director, Commercial Sales APAC for the Radisson Hotel Group. Pooja has over 18 years of sales experience in hospitality industry. She has spent 9 years with the Radisson Hotel Group and is currently heading commercial sales for APAC region. She's proficient in areas of new business development and strategic planning, market expansion, and liaison programs. She's well regarded for being a specialist in sales process and relationship management in the industry. We also have Manish Ray. He's a VP Global Administration and Procurement at eValueServe. Manish has over 18 years of extensive senior leadership experience in workplace management, specifically in the areas of budget planning, managing large widespread operations and team. He specializes in corporate real estate strategy, including facility management and outsourcing, while having a strong hold in procurement along with company compliance on physical and statutory information security. We then have Sharad Kumar. He's an Associate VP with Strategic Procurement at Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages Private Limited. Sharad is a supply chain procurement professional with 20 years of enriching and action-packed experience in multiple industries. Currently working with one of the biggest bottlers of Coca-Cola in Asia, he has been working on procurement excellence across end-to-end supply chains. Then we have Rakshit Desai. He's a managing director at India Flight Centre Travel Group. Rakshit is responsible for Indian interests of the Flight Centre Travel Group, FCTG, one of the world's largest travel retailers. So FCTG's India's presence comprises of market-leading FCM and corporate traveler brands. He's frequently quoted on industry and economic issues and a regular speaker at trade events. Rakshit also featured in the 2015 edition of the Economic Times Spencer Stuart Top 40 Under 40 Business Leaders list. So a very hearty welcome to all our panelists and to all the audience viewers and listeners of the webinar. Let me quickly articulate the agenda for today. So as part of this webinar, we are in process of introducing a white paper, which is co-developed by FCM and KPMG. It highlights in-depth research and insights and relevance. Post giving you a brief introduction on the white paper, I'll have a Q&A session with our panel members for almost about an hour. Then we'll block about 15 minutes of the Q&A, and last 10 minutes we'll launch the white paper and closing remarks from Rakshit. So as part of the introduction of the white paper, this white paper, so if you look at India's contribution to the global 1.6 trillion business travel market will grow as it evolves into the 5th largest market in the world. So in the knowledge economy, travel tends to be the 3rd largest cost driver, and people after people and infrastructure. So as business travel industry matures, a number of risks have surfaced, and these risks existed earlier also. It's just that they are surfacing right now with varying degrees of impact. These risks, as we witness worldwide, could range from geopolitical tension, cyber threat, business turmoil, to life-threatening natural disasters. So risk management is critical, and we are seeing that with the pandemic COVID-19 at our doors right now. So this white paper aims at giving you a in-depth research and in-depth research on how travel risks, perspectives on multiple risks involved, and their potential impact to the employees, to the cost, to safety, organizational reputation. And it's very, very relevant to each and every corporate traveler, as well as all the CXOs of the organization, on how should they manage this risk. And lastly, we'll also cover the lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic and how to prepare for the future. So let me jump into quickly on the Q&A part with our panelist members. And again, once more, welcome all my panel members. Really, really privileged to have you on board, and being honored to get this opportunity to ask questions to you on this very, very interesting and relevant topic for the market today. So I'll start with Rakshit. Rakshit, in your opinion, what is the biggest risk faced during business travel?
So I mean, it varies. It's sector specific, but I think generally speaking, most companies in most sectors will argue that human capital is becoming a source of competitive advantage for them, and any form of risk that you expose yourself to from a human capital point of view could lead to some loss of competitive advantage, some business interruption, some business disruption, whether it's supply chain disruption or customer experience disruption. It doesn't matter, and therefore it's to me, I think the thing that's top of mind for most employers right now is the duty of care, and how it is that they can protect this asset base and ensure the well-being of their employees.
Thanks, Rakshit. So Sharad, pre-COVID, right, has your organization ever faced a crisis? You represent one of the largest bottlers of Asia Pac, and if yes, and how did you manage it, the previous crisis?
Hi, thanks for having me. See, on and off, we face such situations, but they are of a very smaller magnitude. These times are very unprecedented time where everything is logged, and each and every one of us is facing a similar kind of scenario. So we earlier faced partial lockdowns, partial travel bans to countries like US during 9/11, then many other South Asian crises, where there was a travel advisory, and against the travel advisory, each and every one used to travel and plan accordingly. But now is the time when everybody has to look at what is necessary and what is important. There is a big setback to the industry, and corporate travel will continue, but only brave will travel, that I can say, because it would be a very need-based, meaningful trips in the days to come. very tough time. Revival will be slow but conditional. That is what I can add here. We need, each one of us need to actually change our habits and old style of travel, and all the things that we used to do earlier could be needs to change. Social distancing will be a norm, hassle-free travel, touchless entry exit would be a new norm that I see, and hygiene will become a very important part of everybody's life now. But having said that, it will take time, industry will take time, but then I am very positive that every situation will lead to some result oriented options that will come. So all I can say is that we are a country which believes in very touch and feel kind of an environment. So I am very hopeful that we will bounce back very soon, provided the conditions are matched.
No, very, very nicely put, Sharad. So this leads to the very interesting points also you brought up. So Pooja, you represent one of the largest hotel chains, right? Radisson Group.
Yeah.
We saw SARS in early 2000. We also saw MERS in the Middle East. We saw 9/11. Now, what do you think is the biggest challenge, or is that you or the hotel industry is facing due to COVID, right? And how well prepared is your organization to handle a situation such as COVID-19?
Yeah, sure. So I think, as Rakshit just said, that the biggest risk that we are currently facing is of financial disruption along with duty of care, being in the hospitality industry. The immediate big risk that we faced, before COVID was 26/11, right? And that was related to security. So post which the industry has upped the game as far as security and safety is concerned. Now, right now, I think the most important question that a consumer or a guest is going to ask themselves and to us is that how safe I am going to be with you, whether to stay, whether to eat, or even to enter our premises. So as far as the safety and health and hygiene is concerned, I think our industry is well prepared. Since the onset of COVID-19, we have strictly implemented and recommendation from WHO, all relevant authorities of country-specific requirements, focusing our efforts on investment, on expanded hygiene, health, and sanitation precautions. I think as an industry, we are well prepared. But again, to be honest, we are in a situation where we learn as we go, right? Something of this nature, a global disruption of this level has, at least, in my lifetime, I haven't seen anything like this. So I think what's important for companies, not just the hospitality industry, but in general, is how fast you take things in control and implement processes to mitigate risk.
Yeah. And Manish, if I would like to continue this question further to your organization, you represent a technology-based organization. How has COVID impacted, right? And how is technology utilized in terms of determining the frequency of this risk, mitigate these type of risks?
Thanks, Neil. First of all, congratulations to introducing all the team panelists in a very well manner. I think you structure the entire discussions in a very, very firm manner. So congratulations to you. Big congratulations to Team FCM for organizing this meaningful session, because that's the need of our hour. Before I start, I think I would simply say that travel may hurt you, but I think monotony will kill you. So soon everything will be revamped and things will change. Before touching what actions we have taken, because as the e-Valdez, we have widespread across the world, and we have the big presence in US, Chile, China, Romania. So before touching that part, I think I'll just take one step back for the entire discussions we had with all the distinguished panelists. That this is emotional and personal, connect, and maybe the attack. I would say terrorism, everything is a boundary-based attack, but this is a personal and emotional, attack, which we experienced in 2002 when we had that SARS attack from all around. But we have seen that how the travel industry grown in 15 to 18 months time. The initial dip was 42%, but after 15 to 18 months, the raise was almost 192%, and from there onwards, one fluctuation during the recession in 2008-9, and some impact in 2011. But this is something which is more impactful, more serious, and we all have already learned a lot about it, what need to be taken care of it. But the important aspects as a eValue serves, because are widespread all across, and we are in the market research, business research, financial research, and the consultancy job, like I'm sure KPMG also doing. So you have to have at certain level human touch. Now there's all technologies are available. You've been working with all your clients all across the globe. You are working with a highly investment bankers. They always focus on the confidential information. And we cater those services, and they have appreciated a lot what eValue have prepared, because we assume that such situations will come, and how you can protect and feed your client on a BCP front. So completely we are 100% working from home all across the globe except China, because China office has been resumed in fact 20 days ago, and they are operating it out. But only things which I'm looking forward in future, that the kind of business we all are doing, there are some human touch which is required. And without that, you can't predict the world as of now. From last 2 decades, we witnessed it out. So going forward, I think that would be the big change, that how we can, keep the optimum balance between the technology and the human touch. So that would be the vision in coming 4 to 5 quarters. It will take another 15 to 18 months to revamp the entire industry. Because like KPMG or renowned organizations, PwC, EY, these are the consultants, and they are giving a lot of inputs to all industry. But industry is not equipped to work from home or take it everything from the back end. It's not possible at all. It will take at least 5 to 6 years to reach to that level. And it's all about the emotional connect, which I have started my conversations after 6 months, 8 months time. If some question will spread in the market that there is a vaccine or something like that, things will rapidly go to the different level altogether.
Got it. So, no, thanks, Manish. This was very, very insightful in terms of how you foresee in terms of where, how matured we are, and how long will it take. So I take this thought to Sanjay, and Sanjay, early indications, right? If I look at China market or Australia market, who have been impacted and they're now recovering, the early indications of the cautious return to travel behavior, where corona infection have fallen compared to what was in the beginning. Number of domestic flights is roughly about 40% of pre-COVID levels. Do you see a similar trend in India? And what tips or points that you will raise to all of our audience, corporate travelers, the CXOs, and how will it impact the airline industry?
Thank you, Neeraj, and thank you, Rakshit, for organizing a summit on this. First of all, let me kind of give a overall view of what we have been seeing in the media and all across the globe. Aviation industry has been the most impacted industry. If you look at some of the numbers which are floating around in the public, through IATA, through CAPA, through any other organization which is involved into the R&D on the aviation side, we are talking about impact, financial impact and distress about close to about $350 billion on the aviation as a whole and the worldwide aviation industry. So even the companies like Deltas and United of the world, or Lufthansa, the Singapore Airlines of the world, they were sitting on a huge pile of cash, ranging from $8 to $10 billion in their balance sheet. They are seeing a huge struggle at this point of time. And the impact of this situation has never been seen before. If you talk about 2611, if you talk about SARS, if you talk about financial distress of 2008, I mean, there's no comparison to the situation which we are in today as an industry as a whole, and it will take maybe 2 to 3 years to get back to pre-COVID states if the situation tend to keep on improving. Now, coming back to the domestic side of the business, I think what we've seen all in China is that about 40% of the flights are back, operating with about 60% of the load factor. That's a good sign of early indication that things will start to fall back once you have new norms of working and flying and traveling in place, and also improved safety and security measures both at the airport and also on the airline side. I think it will be a matter of time when we see it in the domestic market also. We see that recovery in domestic market will be much faster than what will happen in the international market. And we are of the view that domestic recovery might take about 3 to 6 months time post opening up, whereas the international recovery might take 12 to 18 months time in the medium haul, and about 18 to 24 months time in the long haul flying. So as far as the business traveler is concerned, I'm sure business traveler, despite the fact that today all of us are used to operating from home, but there is a need still to travel for different reasons. And I think business traveler, they may see an impact in the front of the cabin due to the cost constraint, but low cost airline worldwide will see a fast recovery than the full service airline, even in the post-COVID scenario. And that's the kind of general view which I think is developing as far as the industry is concerned.
Okay. No, very, very nicely put. So if I extend the same question to Rakshit, you, right, and with a point of view that what just Sanjay just said, right, that domestically we will see travel getting back to a little bit back on track in 3 to 6 months. You being the largest retailer of travel, how do you foresee this industry coming out of it, and what tips will you give to all the corporate travelers?
So I think the timing is being determined by so what I would say is, I think we are in a situation right now because we have a combination of natural and artificial constraints in place, right? Natural constraints in the sense that there is a disease out there, and people are obviously concerned, and artificial constraints in that governments have shut down borders, shut down airports, grounded fleets, and so on and so forth. Now, to me, the biggest driver of timing will be the timing around some of these artificial constraints, right? On the natural constraints, we know it's binary, right? So till we have a vaccine or we have herd immunity, one or the other, right? And if we have neither and we are starting to run out of money, then we'll brave the risk. Right. So I think, at some point in time, a public health issue becomes an economic issue, and we are not far from that. Unfortunately, we don't have the national wealth or the scale of natural resources for us to just subsidize a population of 1.3, 1.4 billion people all the way through to resolving the health issues. So I think for us, there's going to be a bigger economic and social problem than a health problem at some point in time. So I think it's quite hard to determine what the timing of some of these constraints will be. But certainly, if I look at it from a business travel point of view and what our customers are telling us, and I'm sure Manish and Sharad can validate or dispute. But once we get over the initial hump of we have a problem, there is an existential crisis, we need to adapt. You then get down to business, maybe a new normal, but you get down to business and you say, what are the two things you have to do? You have to restore your broken supply chain, and you have to work on demand generation for whatever products and services that you have, right? Now, to restore your broken supply chain, you have to forge new relationships, you have to forge new sourcing arrangements, you have to put in place new contracts, you have to build new factories. You can't do these things remotely, right? There's a lot of talk about people moving manufacturing activity out of China and potentially into India. India could be a big sort of beneficiary of some of these moves, because of the trust issues in the geopolitical environment today. But you can't actually break ground on a new factory without visiting the site, right? I mean, let's face it, right? On the other hand, in terms of demand generation, right, what do you have to do? You have to launch new products, you have to energize your distribution channels, you have to inspire your customers to buy, right? To make an ad film, a 30-second ad film, you have to bring lots of different people together, in a location, right? And there are some things that you can do remotely, but a lot of things have to be done physically. And I think there will be a realization that, look, we need to move beyond this, right? Because resources are finite, and at some point in time we got to stop praying for a miracle and we have to get down to business. And I think at that point in time too, apart from these artificial constraints which are acts of government, I think two things will come into place, which is, if a trusted entity like Indigo or Radisson stands up and says, look, we've got you covered, that trust goes a long way in inspiring confidence, right? And that trust that has been built over a period of time, the measures that brands like Radisson and Indigo undertake in order not to violate that trust or deplete that trust, that equity that has been built up over time, I think that will inspire corporate travelers to start stepping out and saying, look, these guys have me covered, now let me get down to running my business. So my hunch is that the recovery will be sharp but not full. So I'm with Sanjay in this, that I think that a minimum level of activity will need to resume very, very quickly. And so if I had to hazard a guess, I would say, look, we'll get to about 50% of the old normal in a matter of a couple of months. But that journey from 50% to 100% might take more than a year, right? And there are there are macroeconomic issues that need to be resolved as well, because we weren't anyways in the pinkest of health going into this crisis. And so coming out of it, we're obviously going to be ultra cautious. But I think routine tasks can be done remotely. Breakthrough innovation and changing trajectories or changing orbits in the performance of your business, that requires human collaboration. I don't think you can do without that.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Very fair, Rakshit. So if I Pooja, I'll have a related question to you on this one.
Sure.
If I look, Rakshit spoke about the trust on the brand names like Indigo and Radisson Group brings to the table, right? And gives comfort to people in terms of that they can return back the properties, the flights will be hygienic. But if I and recently Airbnb also announced enhanced cleaning initiative, right? There will be like a 72-hour wait period between guests, so proper hygiene cleaning can take place, and the next guest can be comfortable with all the safety measures that have been taken. But in spite of that, there is it is going to have an impact on profitability of the organization, right, of the hotel industry.
For sure. Yeah.
And we have seen there is a sudden decline in the occupancy rates. So how do you balance safety and profitability? Are you looking at alternate revenue streams?
Yeah.
Keep this balance, right?
Sure. I think to answer your first question, right now, the whole dynamics of the industry has changed. Health, hygiene certification or cleaning and disinfection seal is going to become a minimum mandate, right? This is something that the industry was really not so much focused on. I mean, safety, security, all that was of primary importance. But right now, these seals are going to be extremely important. We as an organization, we have already identified a 25-step protocol, a touch point protocol, right from the time a guest steps into our hotel till the guest checks out of our hotel. There are protocols on meetings and events. There are protocol on internal processes. So all these has been worked on. We are also working with external agencies to give us these certifications, right? Because we may not be the experts in this particular segment. So we are reaching out to experts to get these seals and certification. They will act as an advisory to us. They will regularly audit our properties. So that is what we are doing as far as the safety and hygiene is concerned. In terms of profitability, I think you're absolutely right. With social distancing, with all these protocols, profitability is going to impact. And I think, and it's not just restricted to hospitality. I think every industry is going to take that financial hit. And the buying pattern and expectation of the customer will change post-COVID for sure, right? So organizations like us will have to adapt to the new ways of working, and we are looking at the new streams of revenue, such as leasing, packed food, outdoor catering, staycations. I think the hotels will need to customize themselves to cater to extended stay requests, right? So I think these things will change very rapidly, and eventually we will have to get back to our feet and come up with these new streams of revenue for sustaining our business.
Yes. So if I move to Sharad, uh, uh, how is corporate coping up with this, right? There are certain functions, there are certain requirements where you will have to travel. So what is the top management view from a corporate point of view? What are their messages to their employees? And how do you foresee this playing out in the near future?
And if I can just add an addendum to that question, Sharad, maybe for you and Manish both, which is you guys, you guys are at the cusp of having to make that rather brave call, right? Which is you're going to decide whether people can travel or not travel, and therefore you're going to put people at risk or not put people at risk. And how is it that you deal with that pressure? Because for us, look, it's an existential crisis. We know that we need to open up a shop. We know we need to keep our properties open, our airplanes in the sky. We need to persuade people to get on them, right? But you have to make the decision on whether or not it is safe for your people to go, and how is it that you deal with that pressure?
So as of now, the first recommendation is people. People are our first priority. So as of now, strictly no travel. So there are travel bans, and anybody who is need-based traveling to one destination is asked to be in quarantine in their other destination for at least 14 days and come back to us with the report on daily basis that how he or she is feeling. Secondly, I just want to add that as most of you have shared that yes, this few things need requirement your physical presence and all. So travel stay will subsequently continue. But then trust. Revival is only possible when you build trust. And I see this on the hygiene side. So there are basically some WHO requirements, some other requirements, but then how we proactively show that we are doing beyond what is needed. So 20 points, 25 points checklist, which is beyond WHO, right? I see lot of new ways of working, which is prevalent and which the companies are adopting, including us, which could be virtual reality. How you engage your customer and share what all steps you are taking, or what is your priority in terms of creating a hygiene and in creating a safe environment for a corporate traveler to travel or to stay. Classic examples are that we have started virtual tour of our factories to the customers. We are sharing it on social media. I recently saw a beautiful video from Mahindra and Mahindra sharing how they have implemented and adopted various hygiene practices within their environment. Very, very small. We have in Bangalore, Behroz Biryani. If you order Behroz Biryani, you will get a log of the people who have touched the product with a temperature scanning schedule coming with your bill. So that gives a lot of confidence that yes, And I see a lot of things can be taken care of by IT and digital transformation. There's a huge shift which has happened in the airline industry, but I still see that the hotel and industry is still lagging, and they are not doing appropriate investments in IT infra. So virtual reality would be a reality to win trust. X-rays, thermal scanning. I saw a video how Emirates in UAE has started using thermal scanning helmets. They are not holding anybody, but the security team through thermal scanning helmets screens are able to detect the people with higher temperatures, and only those people are being held up. I see that the corporate traveler in the days to come will face a lot of check barriers. You might have to be at the airport maybe 4 hours before. But then to remove all these barriers, we need to think innovative. Mobile phone is, everybody carries a mobile phone. Can we do a web check-in kind of thing in hotels also? Can we use some barcodes, retina scans, or I don't know what, wherein the customer just steps in? It still takes 10 to 15 minutes at the reception to do your check-in, even if you are a frequent flyer or even if you are a regular customer. So
Yes.
that for me will be an important aspect. We have to unleash the power of all the AIs, IoTs. Travel history will play a major role. Once the vaccine is in place, probably the vaccine card or your medical history, which is already on the record on the platforms or technology platforms of the hotels and airlines, will play a major role. If you travel to Africa, you carry your yellow fever vaccine card with you. So similar medical history of frequent flyers and how we capitalize on this will boost my morale as a corporate traveler to travel. Definitely for few months, it would be direct flights will be preferred, and kind of a morning evening kind of a work would be preferred. But as Rakshit said, few times you have to stay, and that can only happen when you build that kind of a trust and hygiene factors on it. And I would probably classify the hotels and the airlines for me as, in the days to come, basis the hygiene and what all visual impact that I experience while traveling or not traveling, or while staying or not staying. And I will definitely have to bucket them as a preferred hotels or preferred airlines versus non-preferred hotels on non-preferred list, basis all these pointers. That's what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Sharad. So, Rakshit, thanks for adding that beautiful spin to that question. And I'll take that to Manish also. So, Manish, so day one, let's say flights start in 3 months' time, right? Day one, you have, as a CX in the organization, you have to make a decision. Should this person travel or not travel? So, what are the key steps that you believe the organizations should take? And will you really force your employee to, once it travels, to stay 14 days in that particular location, then come back, then stay again 14 days in the home location, being quarantined? So like every travel, is it going to be that painful where people themselves start saying, no, I don't want to travel? So how do you balance these things, right? The safety is definitely important. People are important. Hence, the government is taking all these steps, lockdown, shutdown, all of these things. But how do you, as a corporate traveler, how do you balance the corporate agenda, the people's safety, and the comfort of allowing people to travel and managing that risk?
Thanks once again, because that's a question is already spin, and thank you, Rakshit, to adding that flavor. It's really important. I think I'm not going to touch the standard discussions. I'm sure we have already touched everything, what precautions and basic steps we've been taking it out. Only 2 steps. One, today it's almost 40 days we completed all in lockdown. And on KPMG standpoint of view, whenever you go to check any client as a consultant, You see all the policies and processes and procedure which is laid down very beautifully in most of the organization. But there's a one common policy which is missing. What is the frequency to review rest of the policies? And whether you have made the changes in those policies or not. And most of the organization fail into it. Some of the organization have made those policies but not implemented into it. So what eValueServe has done from last 40 days to review all their corners, all their procedures, what should be the right protocol, what should be the kickoff after 2 quarters or 3 quarters. And there are a weekly call with all board members. We have 7 board members across the organization, and they are feeding multiple organizations across the world, and they're highly experienced, wealthy and all. So the kind of insight we are getting that it's not what eValueServe is going to prepare, what rest of the world is preparing after this 2 quarter. And that's the depository we are creating to revamp our business. So on that front, what we are doing as of now, that we are simply putting more control for next 2 quarters, because in next 2 quarters nothing will move. So some movement will start from 4th quarter of this year. Nothing will move before that. Only essential piece will move. Only a very important aspects will move. The way we have seen the headline today from the Hindustan Times that 1,500 people move from India to the rest of the world and rest of the world to India because they are reaching to their home and all. So next 2 quarter would be a slightly challenging for everyone. And that's a very, very precious time for everyone to make yourself more stronger, more focused, more flexible, so that you can face and you can change the world once you will see the world is going to open it out. The second aspect, which is a very short way to describe it out, we've been talking about our internal independent domain, for example, hotel industry or the travel industry we talked upon. We talked upon the core processes as well, and being a KPMG, you have the widespread of all the organizations inputs in your hand. So I look this industry is not only the corporate travel. I looked at industry from 3 aspects. First is the business. So business is not only the corporate, the manufacturing units and import and export, because as of now, the entire world is toddler. Everybody is dependent on many countries, but the vision is going to change is everybody wanted to walk themselves. So they are structuring their infrastructure in a very strong way, including India and the rest of the world, so that at least, they should come up with a strong way. The second important aspect, the corporate travel and the conferences or for any, trading pertaining, so that will always go on it. The second most important aspects in travel industry is sports. I think we have not touched upon. I think World Cup is also on the edge towards end of this year, and that will definitely might be shift for a 1 quarter, not more than that, but likelihood it will be on time. And sports is adding a very, very vital role in this travel industry, hotel industry. And I'm sure Pooja and Rakshit will have some smile on their faces, because once this sports fraternity will on, the entire chunk of business will flow like anything. So that's a very important aspect. Last but not the least is tourism. I think the CNN have presented that data that 4.1 million people, billion people have traveled in total 2019 only in the tourism front. So everybody is eagerly waiting, and I should not touch the lighter part which we have witnessed from last 3 days relaxations on the all the state government have given, and people who are making queue of 3 or 4 kilometers for essential services to avail that out. So people are eagerly waiting for, to come out from that lockdown, because it's like a lion which is inside the cage, and they are waiting to open the cage, and they just fight the world. So everybody is trying to prepare themselves to make it more stronger, more focused. So once the situations will streamline and slightly smoother, people will just attack to grab the maximum opportunity, because hunt will go in a different way after 2 quarters. The way we've been working, it's not like that, because everybody is hungry. Everybody is looking to fulfill that 4 quarter gap. And, and that will take another, 18 to 24 months. I think that CNN has already forecast that, their numbers with the help of the Dollar Flight Club community. So I think that's the optimum time to strong yourself and just prepare after 4 quarter to fight in a different way.
Yes. No, thank you. So you bring a good point. So Sanjay, there was a survey done by IATA, and what came out of that survey is that 40% of people will be brave enough to start traveling, but 60% said, no, 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 we are going to wait for 6 months, right? And the points that Manish brought out, right, means how, the different events, tourism being one of the great this thing in terms of travel, then sports and all other corporate events that make people travel from one destination. How do you foresee, based on this IATA survey, that if people are scared to travel, what will be the impact of this on various industries and very specifically on the airline front?
Yeah. So, I'll talk about IATA survey, which is largely skewed towards the most long-haul international travel. They have taken a sample size of about 5,000 customers across the world, and India doesn't even figure in that number. So my comment about that will be slightly more refined survey, which has been recently done by an Indian company. When they have talked to about 5,000 people in India, talking about travel patterns, how quickly they want to get back to the traveling, they have come out, 72% of the people have said that we would like to get back to travel within 0 to 3 months time. And that is what I think are the sentiment which are more applicable to the domestic market, not so much of the long haul international flying. Now, if you go further into it, I mean, these are the 5,000 customers who have been interviewed by this company in association with BMN. They talk about basically the business travelers. So there is a sentiment which is saying, yeah, of course, in a post-COVID scenario, we definitely require more hygiene, more security, more safety, and anything and every process to be redefined to meet the broader objective of health and safety and security. Then we are willing to travel. So it is a matter of time when we have, fortunately for us in India, aviation is a highly regulated industry. And we are in a very, very strict control environment here, and we have to kind of follow the processes which are not only defined by various international organizations, but also our Indian DGCA, which is a step ahead than to those international standards. So in that aspect, we are much more conservative than any other part of the world. And our view is the airport and CISF and other stakeholders, including the airline. I think all the processes which are being discussed and being redefined once we start operations once again, next 15, 20 days time, I think are aimed at not only ensuring that customers feel more confident, but also airline operators, airline employees, airport operators, they feel equally confident, their employees feel equally confident. So it is not the matter of only customer flying and coming back to flying. It is also the staff who are involved in this process of handling this thousands and millions of passengers every month. They should feel confident, they should feel secure and safe. And we are, as an industry, including the Ministry of Home and other regulators, we are ensuring that all these processes are defined in such a way so that not only the traveling public, but entire ecosystem handling feels more confident about handling and traveling. Now, the second aspect is it going to cost extra in terms of putting these processes in place? The answer to that will definitely be yes. You've been listening to a lot of conversation that middle seats should be left empty. The same IATA study has shown that if you want to create a social distancing on the plane, that is practically impossible.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, there are other ways and means to kind of protect and create a safe environment on the plane. Maybe, you can ask every passenger to wear a mask, wear a hand glove, or maybe wear a PPE, disposable PPE. So that a customer, when he's flying, he's using that, and when he's off the flying, his arrival station, he just kind of disposes it off. And that may cost you some 200, 300 rupees. Obviously, airline could bring in that as a part of the pricing overall. But the answer to that is these new social distancing norms, either on the airport or in the plane, or even during the journey in the plane, the minimum interaction between the crew and the passengers, minimum movement of the passenger on the plane on the aisle while flying. So it's a 2-hour flight. So we'll have to kind of work out a lot of new improved processes and systems so that there is less of contact either on the check-in counter or at the entry point, all while traveling on the plane, while retrieving your baggages. So that's why, when Sharad said that technology will play an important role, I think, airlines and the entire ecosystem is looking at when we have the flight starting again, we could do 100% web check-in. So there's no requirement of passenger to have interaction on the check-in counter with the passenger. So passenger comes with 100%, web check-in scenario. They carry the boarding card. If the passenger is having a baggage, they simply go to the baggage drop area, which is also contactless because he's carrying a baggage tag with him. So all this innovation will be, things of future tomorrow whenever travel start again. And we are seeing now the government is opening up some flights into India, effective 7th, which is tomorrow, to carry out this evacuation process. And some of these new processes will be implemented at that time. It will be good test to see how these processes are working in terms of bringing efficiency and confidence back to the traveling public. And then, of course, when it becomes a regular operation, regular commercial operation, it will be way of doing business every day. So what I'm quite confident, being in India, we have this very tight regulation as far as aviation is concerned. We have very tight control at the airports. In access to the airport is only to the passengers, unlike other part of the world. If I'm going to drop my cousin to the airport, I can go up to the check-in counter or up to the security hold area. In India, we don't have that luxury. So that itself provides a lot of safety net around each and every aspect of our airport processes, whether on the check-in side or on the flight side or on the arrival side. So we are quite sure that once we have all these processes laid down, it will bring not only the confidence to the traveling public, but also the confidence to the people who are handling the travel.
So,
sorry, if I may just come in, Sanjay. So you think these new operating procedures will have material cost implications? And if they do you believe you'll be able to pass them on to the customer, because the pricing environment will remain quite fragile for a while, right?
Yeah. So the other measures may not have a huge cost impact. It will have some cost impact. Like if your crew are wearing PPE, all of them, obviously one set will cost you 1,000 rupees. And if you have 1,000 flights and 4 crew every flight, 4,000 and multiply by 1,000. So it will be a cost impact, but not to undermine the safety and hygiene and health issues of the customer. So that airline and the airport operator will have to make this investment into going forward. Now, coming back to the measures, if you want to have a seat next to you getting empty, that itself, we have seen IATA study, that will increase the cost of flight or opportunity by at least 50%, if not more. And that too will not give you any guarantee as far as, because you still are keeping about 2 feet away from the first alpha seat or the aisle seat to the window seat. There's only gap of about 3 feet in between, right? Mm-hmm. So that doesn't really help anybody. But if you were to implement that kind of measures, then obviously it will have a huge impact as far as the cost is concerned, and obviously it will have to be looked at the pricing while you provide to the customer. But other than that, I think rest of the cost will be part of doing business. It will have some impact, but obviously it might be significant impact that your fares will go 50%.
So Pooja, I'll take this thought process to you, and I'll say, so see, we have seen 9/11, and that changed the behavior of travelers and even the security personnel, right?
Yeah.
Which were not pretty valid in majority of the Western countries' security, where you can walk almost to the gate. All Western European countries, US, they all have adopted new security measures where they're more tighter. SARS and MERS were very localized events. But now if I look at COVID, which is global, does this mean the future of the industry and the behavior patterns of every traveler and the providers is going to change fundamentally? And if you believe that, then what does the future look like? What are the risks, and how do you predict what will be the life of a traveler in the future? Is this permanent? Is this temporary?
So for sure,
Neeraj, sorry. I like the way you started by saying we've seen 9/11. So clearly some of us have, because we were around then, but you might want to check with Pooja whether she has or she hasn't.
Of course I was around. No, so I think the way we work, our ways of working, it will for sure change for an extended period of time. I don't know if it'll be forever, Just to talk a little bit on what some of you have spoken on the recovery phase, I think that is something very important to understand. According to me, I think the recovery is going to happen in 4 different phases, if I can say so. Right now, we are in the lockdown phase where, everything is restricted, the borders are closed, there's absolutely no travel that is happening. The next phase, which we are seeing right now in China, because we have about 20 hotels in China, and until March end, we were seeing occupancies of about single digit, about 5 to 7%. And now in the last 1 month, in April, we have seen the occupancies go up to about 30-35%. So that is like a restricted phase where people are traveling, but there is only domestic travel that is happening. And that's what we see in China right now. The third phase that I feel is going to be a returning phase where, and we don't know the timelines around it, right? Because it depends on a lot of factors. So the third phase is going to be returning phase where there will be some confidence that will be built up in selected markets. As Sanjay said, airlines will slowly start to, open up, international sectors will open up. And then eventually, we will see a complete recovery phase where we will see travel happening the way it was happening pre-COVID. I really don't see, until actually when things were, bad only in China, we thought it is going to be like a V recovery where, you things go down and then sharply it comes up. There is an uplift, which is like pretty fast. My understanding of the scenario right now that it's changed now, in the last couple of months. The recovery is going to be slow and gradual. It's going to be more like a U than a V. I think 3 things as far as hospitality industry will have to focus on, and I think Sharad spoke about it when he was talking about technology. 3 changes I see. One will be personalized delivery, but with low touch services, right? Our industry is such that human factor will be required. We will still need people to, smile and welcome the guests, but the touch points will be less and fewer. So that is number 1. Number 2, I think the role of artificial intelligence, neural networks, machine learning is the key, because we need to learn from the behavior of our customers and what their needs and requirements are when they stay with us. And the third and the most important thing, which would be robotics and automation. I think some of you might know that in China, Alibaba, already has a hotel that is almost 80% run by robots. It is eventually that'll happen, but now with all these changes that are rapidly happening, I think these things are going to come into play much faster than it was supposed to come. So that would be my take on this.
So Pooja, you spoke about China, right, where you saw the growth back to 35%.
Yeah,
is that growth,
in some cases?
Yeah, and honestly, is that growth knee-jerk reaction of being locked down? Just like if I'm being locked down for the last 40 days, suddenly when doors open, I'll be like, let's go out. Was that a reaction of that thing, or is it really you see that people are more open and they believe that it is safer to travel?
That's a good question. What we are seeing, actually, it's a mix of everything, to tell you the truth. But the maximum business that we are seeing in China is domestic corporate business, right? So the first segment, so when we talk about segments, the first segments that we see coming into our books is the corporate domestic leisure, so basically FIT. Free individual travelers. The second that we see is the leisure FIT. So yes, you're right. People are actually bored. China saw 2 long weekends. Right now, actually, as we speak, they have a long weekend the whole week, and we saw some increase in leisure FIT travel. So people are actually bored and they want to travel, but that travel, obviously, right now people want to travel short distance. So if let's say I am in Bangalore, I may just want to drive down and go to Ooty or to Mysore, but not go to Srinagar, right? So I think, it is happening, but people are careful. The third segment that we see, we have already started to see business from, is the small meeting and event space. So people are already started to book meeting and events, but not on a large scale, on a small scale. And the last segment to come into play, or that we are seeing some queries coming around, is the leisure group. So I think that is something, the leisure group and series is something that we feel may come last. And so that's how we see the travel trend right now in China market. And I very strongly believe we will see a similar trend in India market as well.
Okay.
Pooja, do you think the state plays a role? The Chinese government said, get on the plane, so people get on the plane, right?
I mean, not in the 5-star segment category. Because we're really not seeing, I think it's the domestic, the SMEs that are starting to travel right now. So the small companies are starting to travel now. People are taking shorter personal trips when they see a long weekend. So I won't entirely say that would be the reason.
So Rakshit, you previously mentioned that there are certain things where you require physical connection, right? For example, supply chains. I mean, it's a physical movement of goods. Whatever you do, there will be human interface at some point in time. We are trying to move manufacturing from China to India, means that's on the table. People will have to visit sites, right? So there is no way that you can actually avoid travel. That's one. Secondly, from a individual, if I talk about my personal listings, at some point, even my family will stand up and say, guys, we've been locked down at home for so many days. We haven't gone anywhere. Means these small car drives around the building and around my community is great, but we have to go out, relax somewhere. So there will be personal travel compulsions that will be coming out. Given all these scenarios, right, means, and if my travel experience is going to be painful at the airport, which was currently already painful based on all the security norms and these things with the huge lines at the airport. And now if on top of that, if we put this COVID-19 screening and precautions that we have to take from a hygiene perspective, how do you foresee this industry getting back on the feet, and how long these trends, these type of trends will last?
Look, who knows, right? But I don't know about you, Neeraj, but मेरी बीवी ने बोला तू जा, अब बहुत हो गया. Yeah, enough working from home. I will never complain about your travel schedule again. So I think if we were in a pure sort of and no disrespect to the government, but if we were in a pure public sector infrastructure sort of situation where we had state-owned hotels, state-owned airlines, state-operated airports, and so on and so forth, I think the experience would be very off-putting. But because the infrastructure is largely privatized, and because there is a very powerful economic incentive for these private sector players to improve the quality of the experience, to reduce friction, to effectively encourage more people to come back into the market, my view is that the service providers, whether they're hotels, airport operators, or airlines, or together collaborating with people like us, I think we will find solutions to reduce friction at the point of travel. And whether it's through better information, better planning, better anticipation, we've got, or we like the way we say, we used to have teams on the ground at every airport, right, where we would try and help take friction out of the airport check-in process for customers by calling ahead, telling them that they look, the queue at entrance security is extra tight today, factor an extra 15 minutes, or there's fog in Delhi, and some planes are getting rescheduled, you need to be aware of that, and so on and so forth, right? So I think through a combination of technology and human intelligence, various ecosystem participants will need to come together and take away the friction. from the customer experience. And the more friction we take away, the more customers that are able to travel out, return home, and have positive things to say about their overall experience, even if it is as simple as it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, right? They don't have to come back and say, wow, that was a delight. They can just come back and say it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I think that will give you the spin-off benefits and the network externalities that will inspire more and more people to travel. And I think you will see the ecosystem normalize quicker. So I think I have a very high level of confidence in the ecosystem's ability to innovate and provide value and take friction out of customer experience and give them reasons to travel.
Fair point, Rakshit. So, Rakshit, we'll take some questions from our audience also at this point. And I have one of the questions from the audience, and I'll please, my panelist members, please pick up. So the question is, will hotel chains and airlines reduce tariff to kickstart business and travel, or increase tariff to cover for the losses, right? And we have seen Ryanair operated in Europe. Their CEO came, and this is not in the question, but I'm adding to it. Ryanair CEO came onto a channel in CNN and said, when we start, there will be a tariff war to get business and to encourage people. So how do you see this playing out? This is a question from one of our audience members. So Sanjay, Pooja, Rakshit.
So I think, yeah. So, as far as airline pricing is concerned, we know that India offers the lowest tariff in the world compared to highest cost. So what I'm trying to say is, the cost of fuel, cost of infrastructure, every other cost put together makes it the most expensive cost operation in the world. But our fares, our pricing is the cheapest. It's cheaper than even AirAsia, which is supposed to be the second cheapest in the world. So AirAsia Malaysia. So it's fair to say that Indian airline, Indian aviation have been offering fares not in line with the cost at all. And that is reflected in terms of the growth, which is in the last 5 years, 15, 18% year-on-year growth, which is happening. It is primarily being driven by the lower fare. Now, the post-COVID scenario, obviously, we expect that airline industry will not get back to the normal inventory level to begin with in the first 3 months, 6 months. Then we kind of phased introduction of the capacity being put back into the system. That is one aspect. And some of the steps which are being taken in terms of building up the new processes, new protocols in regard to the safety, security, hygiene, and health, that will also cost money. Combination of that will also be if this middle seat empty program comes into place, which looks a real 50-50 chance at this point of time. If that comes in place, it will also have a huge impact as far as airline economics are concerned. So put together, I can only make this comment right now. Our fares are still not very high in the country compared to the rest of the world. And if we launch as and when we launch, I think it will be the range bound. I don't think either it will go up or come down until, of course, the middle seat empty program comes in place. Then obviously we could expect fares to go 40-50% because the economics will drastically change. Other than that, I don't think there will be major impact as well. Pricing either going up or going down.
So I would actually agree with Sanjay on that one. I think pricing is something that depends on market condition and your competition set, right? So at least in the 5-star segment, I really don't think that there will be heavy discounting because it is actually not possible for hotels and brands to sustain. There is a minimum cost of operation, right? And to go beyond that actually does not make any sense. To go below that actually does not make any sense. I don't think a heavy discounting trend at least will be seen in the 5-star segment post-COVID.
But does this mean that all these costs that industry is going to bear in order to provide that trust, that safety, that hygiene, like the middle seat, right? United Airlines announced no middle seat will be empty. will all these costs, will these be borne by the industry or will these be passed on, right? Because that really impacts on how the trends will be. We have seen Delhi government implementing like COVID says, right? There's a news in the uh, this thing. So how do we means on one hand you are economically shattered, means people are getting pay cuts, job protection is happening, all of those things is happening. uh, our labor class is really impacted. There is no, because of this lockdown, 40 days, no earnings coming in on a daily basis. Middle class is struggling. On top of that, the taxes are getting levied on goods, and if the travel industry also raises the price to cover all these costs, means from a economic buyer perspective, means where do I stand, right? So that's, so any opinion on that?
So, so Neeraj, I can add one point here. If, as I said, if middle seat empty program comes in place, obviously there will be, some escalation as the cost is concerned. But what is more important today, as you rightly pointed out and summarized, that, today we are talking about customers having less disposable income prior to the COVID period. It is the fact that most of us, either through the salary cuts or job losses or economic downturn or financial stress in the companies or the system of the employees, will have less ability to spend money, both on the corporation side or the individual side as well. And that will have this important impact as far as demand is concerned. Once the demand is down, obviously there will be little ability for the either airline or the hotel to kind of put the prices up. So that will also play a huge important role in terms of determining the future prices of the commodity, like airline seat or hotel room, as to what kind of demand we are seeing at different price levels. My own view is, there'll be constrained demand at this point of time. That's why we are saying that the airline may not be able to put 100% capacity back into the system right on the day one. It will be a phased induction approach, and that will also be dependent on the demand from the customer side, because there are various factors which are affecting customer demand as well. Going forward. So it will be largely dependent on some of the external factors and some of the internal factors on the airline economics. But they may not be able to kind of put forward a very high pricing because of the increased cost and the middle MT option.
Okay. Fair point. Sharad, Manish, what are the steps taken to retain key talent, as human capital is key across both travel supplier and corporate side? So that's a question from an audience. Uh,
Yeah, Neeraj. So again, we discussed initially that last 40 days was terrible for everyone because, and Rakshit also described later on, he just expressed his emotion that his wife said that is, I will not make any questions if you are making any haywire travel plan. So that was the first key. And in this forum, I would appreciate my entire team from the back end who ensure that they need to be connected with all 4,500 employees all across the globe on a weekly basis. Twice a week, they've been getting in touch with everyone. And the kind of engagement activity they have planned from last 40 days, that was remarkable. Everybody was so connected to the organizations. That was really incredible for everyone. On top of it, our management, we are the part of management, the chairman and the board. They have shared their videos. They have shared their personal note to many individuals and connected with everyone. So I would say at that situation, the kind of feedback we have received close to 700 plus very positive feedback all across the globe, that people are highly motivated, highly connected to the organization in this a tough situation. So I think this is a very important aspects for most of the corporate to retain your right talent, a right brain, because if you have the right brain at the right time, they will generate the revenue and they will generate the money later on. But you have to retain the right brain at this point of time, and the kind of focus the entire team which has been taking care from the back end. Again, the kudos to the entire Evaluaserve engagement team, and they have really done a fantastic job to retain that talent, and they feel that we are a part of one family. They never felt it that we are employee or something like that. So they felt that we are a part of our family, and the one contribution from the IT team and the admin team on the ground level as well, where the entire world was locked down. We ensure there are certain clients who have restricted their operation only from office, not to the home. But we took the approval overnight and shifted those machines at their individual home. In spite of border got locked, we have approached all left, right, and center, and we ensure that they feel connected. They would have something to connected with the organization. So those were the key steps which organization have taken, and I proudly say that the backend team of mine have done a fantastic job, and they have retained the 100% talent pool for Evaloserve.
Yes. Okay. So Rakshit, very specific question for you. What will be TMC's role for ensuring health and safety for the travelers? Will you be publishing a handbook, guide, what to expect?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great question. We ask ourselves that question every day. I mean, the reality of the situation is we are a medium, right? And we have a unique vantage point in that we are the only people that, other than the traveler, that has perspective on the end-to-end journey. And our job as a medium is twofold, which is to organize content and information and present it to a traveler in a meaningful way so that they can make informed decisions, and also take the traveler's feedback and shape the product aspects for people like Sanjay and Pooja, right? So make sure that communication flows. We will absolutely be publishing guidelines, standards on what we are seeing on the transportation side, in the air, in accommodation, ground transportation, in airport experiences, visa regulations, government rules and policies. We actively encourage our more sophisticated customers to share their knowledge and their practices with the entire peer forum, so that the entire industry can benefit from that, because not everybody has the same level of access to information, right? I mean, clearly, Reliance's access to information or TCS's access to information is going to be far superior to an SME that's operating out of a tier 2 or a tier 3 city. So our job is to bring that together and make it usable, and to inspire confidence for travelers to embark on that journey, and conversely tell them that they shouldn't if it's not if it's not right. So we're quite happy to do that, and we see that as an essential part of our role.
We'll take one last question from the audience, and so it's Pooja for you. So there are two questions. I'll merge them together. One, what are the precautions for double occupancy, triple occupancy type of a situation? And second, how do you ensure hygiene, safety, social distancing, for room service, and all those type of things? Right? How do you see hotel industry coping up in terms?
So as I said earlier as well during the conversation, that as far as Radisson Hotel Group is concerned, we are looking at hiring an external agency to give us that seal of health and hygiene safety. In terms of the departmental processes and functioning is concerned, we have actually rolled out a protocol. So these are touch point protocols as to what to do when a guest enters, in terms of in-house guest, in terms of restaurants, whether social distancing needs to be maintained in the restaurants, or for breakfast, do we really allow people to come for a breakfast buffet, or do we stop that, or do we do room service for breakfast? So I think at a brand level, we have these protocols set in place, which will be mandated for all our hotels to implement these protocols, and to ensure that we run our hotel operations with maximum safety, health, and hygiene.
So with this, let me call on Rakshit. Rakshit, come. Would like to bring you on to launch the paper. So guys, one of the intent was to launch a paper, and please get that. This paper is an in-depth research and a very neutral viewpoint on how things are going to work, what are the risks that we should be aware of, what the mitigation steps are, and how CXOs should take steps in terms of ensuring the safety of our own people, right? So if you look, this white paper honestly compasses of, is my organization managing business risk efficiently? What are the key risks involved in business travel? What role do CXOs play? How do these risks impact my organization, right? It impacts your organization from both financially as well as from a reputation point of view. How can I save money through risk management? What should my TMC or service provider be doing to manage these risks? Can my organization use technology to manage travel risk? And can these risks in business travel affect my company's reputation? Of course, they can, right? So, Rakshit, please, I welcome you to launch this particular white paper. It's a very interesting read, and when I read it, I felt really compelled to say a very great job done by the FCM team and the KPMG team in terms of putting all these viewpoints out for a reader to uh, comprehensively understand all the risks and the mitigation plan. So Rakshit, over to you.
Thanks, Neeraj. Yeah, I think just to put things in context, this is the fourth edition of the KPMG FCM white paper series. So this is something that we've been doing for 4 years. When we started out, we were very clear that we wanted an industry neutral perspective, one common source of truth, because there were multiple sources of data that we were we are having difficulty digesting, and we said, can we create one source of truth, one common set of information that the industry can start use as the basis for decision making, as the basis for thought provocation, as the basis for debate and discussion. And we wanted to bring all of the ecosystem participants together. So we wanted the principal service providers like the airlines, the hotels, the car rental companies, we wanted the users of the service in terms of individual travelers. We wanted the buyers of the service in terms of in terms particularly enterprise grade buyers of travel services. We wanted people that were shaping the technology horizon for the industry to come together and contribute to this piece of literature. And so we do it as a sense of responsibility for the industry, and because we think that travels is a relatively understood, perhaps not misunderstood, but certainly an understood aspect of running a business, and particularly in the knowledge economy, like you said, after people and infrastructure is the third largest T&E. T&E is the third largest cost bucket, right? So it's a strategic cost driver. In addition to an important area of risk. And I think over the last 4 years, what we've tried to do is we've tried to elevate the conversation. We've tried to engage CXO level participation. We've tried to increase the level of awareness around, first we started at the efficiency end of the spectrum, then we gravitated towards the risk end of the spectrum. And quite frankly, when we said triggered this piece of work, when we brainstormed with KPMG and saying, look, what should our focus area be? I think it was back in October or November, and we settled on risk management. We had no idea that we are going to be in this situation, right? At that point in time, we thought that risk management is not particularly well appreciated. Let's try and bring some focus to it. We need not have worried because circumstances, ensured that that happened anyway. So, that was our aim, that was our objective, and we're absolutely delighted to do that. We will be sending copies out to all of the participants, to all of the people that have registered. I believe nearly 1,000 decision makers in the corporate travel market have signed up for this. So we will be shipping that out. We will be publishing it. So anybody that's interested, even if you're a competitor and you're listening to this, it's available for you to use, because it's as much for you as it is for us. So please feel free to use it. You don't have to give us credit for it. We don't mind at all. And while we're at it, if it's all right, Neeraj, I'd like to do a little bit of a vote of thanks as well. And firstly, to you for moderating this session. Thank you very much. I'm really deeply appreciative of you coming here and facilitating this discussion and stitching together the story, and also to the KPMG team that worked on the white paper and helped create some of the create and develop and validate some of the content that came through. So thank you very much. Clearly this is evolving into a long-standing relationship, given that this is the fourth edition in the series, and hopefully there will be more. Pooja, we haven't met. I hope that changes in the near future. But thank you for what I thought was a very confident assessment of the current situation and where we are headed, and certainly shed some lights and fills in some of the information gaps that as I was running through the Q&A that was flowing through the audience. Certainly it helped fill in the information gaps, and we're very, very grateful for that. Manish and Sharad, I don't envy you in the least. You will have to make decisions in the coming days and weeks that impact the physical safety of your colleagues, and but having heard you guys out, having heard about how you're approaching this, what your sequence of events is, what your plans and contingencies are, clearly there's a level of sophistication that goes with being an enterprise grade travel client. And I know for a fact that there are many people that are in your shoes right now that are listening to us, trying to figure out how they are going to approach this situation, and they've greatly benefited from it. So thank you for coming out here and sharing your views. Yeah, Sharad.
I just want to thank the entire team and the panel for organizing this. It was really good to be part of it. I just want to make a closing remark, and we as a company are very clear on this, that mistakes are bound to happen. Everybody is learning the new way of living and adopting by it. So have patience, empathy, and resilience. That is what I can say, and things will improve.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks Rakshit, and thanks Indrajit. It was really, really great pleasure to interact with you, and special thanks to Rakesh also. He discussed long back to me and he said, Manish, how we can take it forward. So thanks to Rakesh for organizing and creating that platform. I think a small closing remarks from my side, that is always feel to be lost in the right direction. So I think we should go to the right direction. We should not focus whether we lost or we reach the right destination. But one thing which is most important, everyone, that this is the time to work together. If we'll work in silo, will not, come up with this tough situation. So either the hotel industry or the airline or the travel partner or the airport authorities or the corporate like us, we need to work together. We should not look for big profit margin or something like that. We need to earn the trust of all traveler as of now, because people are lack of trust because of fear. So we need to build that trust that we are highly equipped from all surrounding and you're completely safe. Once we'll earn the trust, we'll be on the track soon.
Thank you.
I completely echo that. And thank you, Rakshit, team FCM, and my fellow colleagues who are on the panel. It was a great, learning for me as well. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Sanjay, you are probably the most keenly watched and scrutinized and analyzed individual in the sector today, where I think every time you say something, you have the power to move markets these days, and yet you've come and you've very honestly and transparently given us your views. We have an institutional relationship with IndiGo, but clearly there's a personal relationship here as well. And for you and Manish and all of your colleagues, in addition to the contribution that you're making to this conversation, I wanted to thank you for your warmth and your sincerity, which is deeply, deeply appreciated across all of FCM.
Thank you, Rakshit, and thank you, Neeraj, and all the other panelists. It's been always a pleasure to kind of be on a discussion regarding the aviation, and which is the most challenging time for the country and for the globe as a whole. I hope we all can come together and get out of this mess as soon as possible. So we're always there for anyone who reach out to us. We should be flying back again and making those skies blue all over the place.
And on that note, I think I'll offer two quotes that I recently picked up. One is, I think Murakami, the Japanese author, said, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. right? So that is the choice you make. And the second one I read somewhere was, optimists and pessimists both end up in the same place, which is whatever will happen, but
Exactly.
optimists are more fun on the journey. Right. So thank you guys. It's
Thank
been
you.
wonderful.
Thank
to
you
talk.
all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.